Hello, and I would like to thank you for listening to my national park presentation. My name is Zachary Senst, and for the national park that I chose Katmai National Park and Preserve. So, while researching challenges that this park could face, I found that it's got very similar challenges to many other parks that they're facing too. The main challenge, however, is this park is facing pollution. And the secondary challenge that I found this park was facing is the expansion of the United States or civilization. So my intended audience is the general public, as the information that I found and talked about in my presentation could be applied to most national parks in the United States and the world. So here's a map of Katmai National Park on the left, and its Google Earth location on the right. It's in the southwestern part of Alaska, and Alaska was added to the United States as the 49th state on January 3rd, 1959, but this park was actually established by the territory of Alaska as a national monument in 1918, and it was established as this national monument because of the geological information that scientists were gathering at the time. And it's 21 years, and then it was officially established in December 2nd, 1980 by the United States. Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act then led to further expand this land to create a broader range for people to visit and look at the beautiful mountains and rivers that occupy this location in the world. So a little bit about Katmai. The climate of Katmai National Park, it's much like an Arctic or a subarctic climate. Katmai is honestly, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful parks in the world. Even though I haven't been there, the pictures speak for themselves. And it's opportunities for people to experience all types of wildlife in their natural environment. And as you can see in the bottom right, the picture of the bear is fascinated with the airplane that carries passengers places. It's one of the examples you can't stage. It's got 4.2 million acres of protected wilderness land, and it is home to hundreds of all types of animals. And while Katmai National Park encourages visitors and it welcomes people to come and explore and realize its lands, it is trying to preserve the land, and most transportation is done by airplane or boat through the rivers that it has. And the only actually roads it has are like the 30 miles of roads that contained at Brooks Camp, which in the top right, it's a location where that is. It's in the northern part of Katmai National Park. So now I'm going to start talking about the first problem that this park has, pollution. Pollution is honestly a problem that is at the forefront of many national parks. This park especially is particularly vulnerable to the excess deposition of nitrogen and sulfur into their ecosystem. However, this can be a little bit harder to control, as many of the deposits that are happening is because of its volcanic activity in the area. And this alone can cause havoc within the species living in this subarctic area. And the bottom right gives an example of how wildlife can get caught up with our trash that we throw away, and we don't think of the effects that we can have on animals. So another type of pollution that almost everyone is guilty of is the man-made pollution, meaning the leftover wrappers or bottles that are just left on the trails. This park has a leave no trace principle, but not all rules are always followed 100%, and you can still see impacts on the land, whether it be a wrapper or a bottle here and there. Katmai is home to many rivers and streams, and pollution needs to be kept down, otherwise animals who live off these streams could potentially be harmed and their ecosystem could be destroyed. So while Katmai's air pollution levels are way below the standard, the leftover pollution in the air actually may be good for the plants. The plants in Katmai absorb the little amounts of pollution and will release it back into the air as a almost more filtered substance, providing the air to be safer and better for breathing for all the visitors to the park. And funny story, I actually had a family member who went to Alaska recently, and when I first learned about this project, I asked them to speak to some people for me And all the people that they talked to said that this park was amazing, but they were worried that pollution that they see in the rest of the United States might eventually catch up to Katmai and destroy its beautiful lands. The second problem I've been talking about is expansion of the United States. This is a possible problem that the park could face in the future with the population of the United States growing. This is not a current problem, but expansion could carve into the 4.2 million acres of protected forest land for development of Alaska. So the one positivity that I could find is that if there's ever a challenge for this land, I feel like the citizens will unite and protect this land and its natural, untouched beauty. And while I don't like having any national parks destroyed, maybe it is time to expand into a little bit of it to take a little bit more land so we can populate Alaska more. So now we're going to talk about some of the geological features that Katmai National Park deals with. It is actually home to one of the most active volcano areas, and that is because it is a part of the Pacific Plate and the ring around that plate, which is called the Ring of Fire, which coincidentally has the most volcanoes, earthquakes, and tsunamis in the entire world. This is all caused by the lighter oceanic Pacific Plate sliding under the heavier North American Plate, and like we've learned in this class, that can lead to volcanoes being created. So there's actually 4 eruptions, but 3 of them have only been really confirmed, with the 4th one still a debate. But the 3 noted eruptions are the Nova Rupta, which involved the Katmai Mountain in 1912. Then there was Mount Trident in 1953 to 1974, and the Four-Peaked Volcano, which actually erupted in 2006. So before we go into more detail talking about all the volcanoes, I found it's a cool fact that there's actually a glacier inside of the Mount Katmai volcano. The volcano is on the inside wall of the caldera, and as you can see in the picture, it's on the northern part, and you can kind of see where it's been created. And it was small at first, but now it's extended almost into the lake. And it is actually one of the only glaciers in the world where we know the time that it was created. So now we're going to talk about Mount Martin. It is a stratovolcano and is located in close proximity to the Valley of 10,000 Smokes. There is actually a surrounding debate on whether this volcano erupted in 1953. There is evidence that could point to direction in both ways. There is fumarolic activity on all sides of the mountain that deposit sulfur, and for those who don't know, fumarolic is an area surrounding a volcano which typically emits gases from the crust, which this one emits sulfur, therefore furthering the pollution problem that this park could have. This crater, however, is not filled with the lake like the crater in the last picture. Because of the geothermal heat, it actually contains an intermittent acidic crater lake that... So the next part of the national park that I want to talk about is the Valley of 10,000 Smokes. This valley is filled with ash from the Nova Rupta eruption, which coincidentally was the largest eruption in the 20th century. And it also helped create that crater with the lake that we saw in the previous picture. The valley was previously an unnamed part of the Ukak River Valley, and the Nova Rupta lava dome, which created many fumaroles, which again released the smoke into the area, or the steam, created smoke, and therefore giving the valley its name. And the smoke isn't as evident as it was in the past, and the example of that is in the top right. As you can see, that's years and even months after it erupted. Smoke was erupting from that area and from all areas around, giving that whole valley a smoky feel to it. And like I said, the eruption was the largest in the whole 20th century, and it actually created a beautiful landscape. You can see the lava flows and even some examples of glaciers that have carved canyons in the Valley of 10,000 Smokes. As you can see in the picture at the bottom right, there's little canyons that have been created by the lava flows, and they're just beautiful. And I encourage you to take time to look at pictures and this valley, because I think it is the coolest part of this whole national park, because so many volcanoes have contributed to it, not just the Nova Rupta eruption. So I would like to thank you for listening to my presentation. A couple of references I used was I used Google Earth to find the image. I used the National Park System slash the Katmai selection, and the family member who visited Alaska who gave me what they discovered when talking to the staff and the people who visited there, and all the images were gathered from the National Park website, and there was one image gathered from Google. So I just wanted to thank you all for listening to my presentation, and I look forward to listening to many other presentations in this class too. Thank you.